if you want to.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Comic Newb. Today is pitching a story to an editor, and I have special guests, Chuck Pineau, Luke Stone, Brian K. Morris, and Ted Davies with me. And let me just pull this card off of here so we can all go, surprise.
I love how you say pull it off like we're live, and you're just like...
So thank you guys for all being here with me, and I'm just going to go around the room and let you guys introduce yourselves, and we're going to go clockwise. So we're going to start with Brian K. Morris.
Or are we?
There I am.
I just removed him from the stream. I hit the wrong button.
I know where the power is. Sucking up to Meredith all these weeks. Anyway, good evening, everyone. I'm Brian K. Morris of Rising Tide Publications. We do novels, we do comics, we do floors, we do just about everything. In addition to that, I'm a frequent broadcaster on Nevermind the Furthermore, Sundays through Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central Time, and getting all my sophisticated graphics here. Clever Title Pending every Tuesday night at 8 p.m., 7 Central. And in this show, we have interviews and talk about the business of creativity. Over to you now, Meredith.
All right, and we're going to move over to Luke Stone. I did it again. Damn it. I removed him. All right. I'm going to get these buttons.
Hi, my name is...
Where?
My name is Luke Stone. I am the writer and the artist, or easy way to put it, I'm in charge of words and pictures for a little thing back here called Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. Maybe you've been buried under a rock, or you've been on a long vacation to a galaxy far, far away and haven't heard of it in the last few months. But if you haven't, it's a fun story that I've been writing for the last few years, and we just finished out our issue 5 book, which is available on Indiegogo right now. We just finished a Kickstarter, but you can get the entire series on Indiegogo right now by going to Indiegogo.com and looking up Hybrids 5. You'll find it there. I also do the project managing at a company called Starcross Comics. You can find that at www.starcrosscomics.com, or you can find out more about me from my website at www.lukestonestudios.com. Back to you.
All right. And I did this right.
You did good. I'm proud of you. And you know what? Just in time for the real star. Let's just be honest here. The humble. What's going on, gang? I'm Chuck Pineau, as it says up there on the banner, because really, I need to remind myself when I wake up in the morning. I'm a freelance writer and editor. I've worked on a bunch of stuff, so chances are, if it's indie and you've read it, I might have touched it. I also am an avid indie comics reviewer, and I'm even starting to dabble into audiobooks. So trying to do a little bit of everything. If it's a story, I want to touch it. Go.
Hi, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm Ted Davies. I am the owner of Ted Davies Artistry. I am also the author and artist of Albino Zulu and the new Retrieve sci-fi thriller. If I can get this correct. There you go. Coming out to you directly. And we're having a good time. If you like skull art, I'm a big Skullcat fan. That's my shtick. I love doing watercolor work, and I have a lot of books coming out this year. And I look forward to talking with everybody tonight. Thanks for having me.
All right, cool. So here we are with the panel, and I am the Comic Newb. And, one of the things that I like to say is that I know absolutely nothing about comic books. Once upon a time when I was very young, and we're going back about 40-something years, my friends and I, we were so into Star Wars. We were into, Raiders of the Lost Ark and all of that stuff. And we decided that we were going to create a comic book. And we did. We were in junior high. And we were so excited about it that we sent it off to George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and immediately got a cease and desist, which crushed our little hearts. And then, from there, it was just like life got busy. You got school and then, college, family, kids, and all that stuff, work and everything like that. So I've never actually stopped my my pursuit of creative content, but it's always been in the back of my head that I really wanted to do a comic book. So the opportunity arose when Rob Anderson invited me to the Comic Book Advocates Network. And at first I almost said no, because I told him, I'm like, I don't know shit about comic books. I'm not in this arena. I am with Geek Insider. I interview people. I talk to people who are in this industry, but I myself am not in it. And he says, well, you're good. You're good because you're an advocate. And I said, you know what? This is the perfect opportunity for me to get off my ass and do something about it. And I am not afraid of hard work, and I'm not afraid of learning. So I figure, what better way to start this journey by talking to people who are pros in the field and taking the lessons. I'm getting schooled here, and I don't mind. I love it, because if somebody's watching these videos later on and you're getting lessons from this and you're learning from my mistakes and the wisdom that they can impart, then all the better. So on that note, today is pitching a story to an editor. I have some questions, but I didn't write a lot because I think this is going to be a really good organic conversation while we're sitting here. So we'll see how it goes. I have a comment over here. Let's see who's.
That's me.
Oh,
somebody asked me to tag.
So you're tagging somebody. Okay. I'm like, woo! I'm like, we have a viewer! Yay! Okay.
Do you mind though if I jump in right away before you ask the first question?
Yeah, no, go ahead. Actually, I did want you to jump in because I know you have a milestone too, and I want you to announce that as well.
Thank you.
With your reviews.
With the reviews. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Sorry. There's been a couple, so I'm kind of happy right now. But yeah, Chuck's Raw Reviews. We just dropped our 50th review. So that was very exciting. Thank you guys. I know that doesn't sound like an awful lot, but sometimes in episodes I review several books, so it's our 50th episode, and sometimes I'll read like the first 3, 5, half dozen, whatever issues. So it's a lot more reading than just the 50 books. Also, I've read a lot of books that I don't talk about, so it's probably closer to 100, but whatever. But yeah, thank you for that. One thing I did want to do, because we're talking about pitching to an editor, I want to ask, in this day and age, why are you pitching to an editor? And the reason why, and that's not to discount doing it, there is a point where I think that's a good idea. But I think if you're starting your career by pitching to an editor, you're already behind. You're already heading in a strange direction. Because the thing is, and I found this out very quickly, especially working at conventions and stuff, if they don't know you, it won't matter how great your story is. Like, they will do these cool things where they'll have competitions, and those are really great to do. But if you're cold pitching, and please, guys, tell me if I'm wrong, but the likelihood of, even if it being read is unlikely, but of it turning into something is super unlikely. And the reason for that is that most of these places, now we're gonna discount Marvel and DC and all that stuff right away. But if you're talking about, and most people go, hey, I'm gonna pitch to Image, like that's the first thing you're gonna do. Just so you're aware, when let's say Image says, yes, you're in, we like you, you are officially $5,000 in debt. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's not even a joke, because the thing is, what's up, Teresa? The thing is that they need to make $5,000 off of your book before you see a cent off of it, because of the marketing and everything else that they put into it. So even if, and you're paying for the making of that book. So you're going to pay for the book, you're going to make it, you're going to send it to them. You pitched it to them. Somehow they picked it up. Now you have to make sure that first book makes at least $5,000. Mm-hmm. And they don't need to push it. They don't need to make sure that it makes $5,000, because if it doesn't, then they just go, we picked the wrong fish. Bye. And that's that. Mm-hmm. So really, pitching to an editor is something that you might want to wait a little bit before you create a name, before you've done what the rest of us have done, and that is you've self-published. And And I think that Brian K. Morris might be able to shed some light on this one. But in indie comics, the self-publication is a big deal, and people the community handles it very well. In novels, there's a bit of a stigma, and that one can be a little harder to fight. But in comics, that stigma is just not there. Most of these people that you've seen who are up there and they're doing that, they already cut their teeth on indies. They already did that stuff. Yep. So that's me. Sorry, I ran right out and kind of ran over everything, but I just wanted that to be up there first before we came into it.
Yeah. No. And
yeah,
if I may, Chuck raises some incredible points. He is absolutely right. Networking is very, very important. Also, what I call parlaying your credits. Once you get your foot in the door, any sort of publication, and I would say even now with a web comic or print on demand, where you can go to a private printer and say, I want 25 copies of my magnum opus, and you get 25 copies of your magnum opus, or 100, or what have you. But when I started, when I made my first professional sale or actually as a production of a stage play I did, I had an opportunity to become a transcriptionist for tomorrow's publications. So I wrote to the publisher and I said, hey, I'm interested in that. My qualifications are bupkis, but by the same token, I'm a fast typist. And by the way, I'm a playwright. And of course, award-winning playwright, but that's another part of that scam. But anyway, then I go to the next person and say, hi there, I'd like to write for you. By the way, I'm a transcriber for tomorrow's publications. And did I mention I'm an award-winning playwright? And I always put the quotes in, saying, and no editor and no publisher has ever asked me why there's quotes around it, award-winning. It's because I got an award for not killing the guy who directed that play. And everybody thought I was a good sport about it. But anyway, in this day and age right now, I think it's so much easier to get into print because, like Chuck said, you can print it yourself. In fact, my first publications were actually photocopied. There was a network of mini press people who were trading zines through the mail. Or send me a quarter. I'll send you my 8-page photocopied incredible story. And so the idea is to build a resume of work. Also build your social platform at the same time, which Meredith, you're well on the way to doing. And also networking, because you now know at least 4 people in the industry right here, and we can say, hey, check out my friend Meredith. She's good. Recommendations from someone else helps a lot. Or if somebody just simply gets familiar with your work. And I've gotten a lot of work simply because of the fact that I've shown I can produce and I've shown that I can promote, which says nothing to your, basically to your intrinsic talent. But it does show that, especially if you can get someone to publish your work for you. Hi, Cookie. Cookie just came home. And hey, everyone says, hi, honey. Anyway, and the thing is, now here's the tip. Here's the scam. Now, don't tell everybody in the audience, plug your ears for 10 seconds. Don't list yourself as the publisher. Because in all the years I've been doing my books, the only credit you've never seen, my self-published novels, that you don't see is the name of the publisher.
Everybody nodded. That's so funny.
Yeah, and we're all in on this scam. But anyway, no, but seriously, but Chuck was right. With books, there is still a stigma about self-publication because it implies that you're not good enough for someone else to pay to publish and produce your work. That stigma is going away rapidly, fortunately, but I don't know that it's ever been there in comics publishing, even back in the days before print on demand, when somebody had to print like 4,000 or 5,000 copies of their comic or their fanzine.
I'd say there's always been a little bit in comics. There has, not much, but you always want to have that little logo up in the corner. Doesn't matter whose it is.
Ted, what's yours?
This one, Avidius Press.
Okay, see, and Brian, what's yours?
Mine is Rising Tide. I very cleverly didn't bring one with me, but I also am published by other people.
Yeah.
So
and Bonfire.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
You make up your own name. Try to give it a reason. So if anyone says, "Who published you?" Bonfire Press. Okay, cool.
Right.
That sounds.
I actually did that totally on accident.
No. See, it's instinctful. It's instinctful, Meredith. There you are.
Saying I'm self-pub, it just takes it away right away.
Right.
Now, Chuck, who runs that Bonfire? Who runs Bonfire over there?
Actually, I would mention my partner's name before I mention mine. His name's Chris Latimer. Great dude.
Exactly.
Or I'd mention Wendy Gale, who's my wife, and luckily her pen name does not share my last name. Bam!
There you go. There you go.
Perfect.
I mean, it's marketing at its finest. It's marketing at its finest. Period.
No.
Yep. Go ahead. No, because I was going to say with the idea of submitting work to editors and things like that, in a way, in my head, it's just getting my work out to as many readers as possible who are in the industry, only because from my experience with trying to get into traditional publishing, as far as my books and stories and things like that, there is a 98 to 99% rejection rate as far as getting an agent.
Yep.
Don't even try to go directly to the publisher. You have to go through an agent first. So with that kind of rejection rate, you're almost forced to go into self-publishing. And for so many years, I mean, decades, it's vanity press. You weren't good enough if you didn't have, your book in a publishing house. And so I'm seeing that the comic book industry, I'm seeing that a lot of people are doing under different networks, under a different banner and things like that. So it's really interesting for me. And again, when I put this question out there, it was almost like maybe my way of saying, hey, I know that you read all of this stuff, is there merit in this? And if I get feedback that says it's crap or, move on, or if I don't hear anything at all, it's like, okay, maybe I need to work on my story a little bit. So for me, it's a little bit devious, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Because I understand that, trying to pitch to an editor, especially if you're unknown, especially if you're not doing the marketing. I mean, I think that's a really important panel to have, is the marketing aspect of it. Not so much to sell your book, especially if you don't have one, but to put your name out there and start running around in the same circles. So at some point in time, they're not going to remember whether they actually met you or how you became friends, but they know your name, and they're like, yeah, I'll take a look at your stuff. There's
this thing, Meredith, that you'll hear a lot of people say they level up, and basically that, you call yourself the noob and you're kind of like here, right? But eventually you want to kind of move up into like the next level of your career with writing or creating. And so this idea of leveling up, it's kind of, it's hard to level up if you're not playing with people on the same level that you are. So you're always going to want to try to find someone that's kind of a little bit above where you're at in your station and try to get there. And that means that they also need to evolve too in order for those relationships to continue. So, or else you're going to have to create new connections and new networks. And if you're in a process where you're wanting to kind of create, and your first thought, like Chuck said, is, hey, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch to an editor. That's not really the first place to start. In order to pitch to an editor, you need to pitch to people that are kind of on your same level. Build those relationships and kind of work out your skill level to where you get to the point to where you're ready for an editor. Not everybody is ready to be on a publishing in like a big publishing group. Not everyone's got a book that's ready for Image or that's ready for, one of the things we're looking at is our distribution, and we're getting ready to start looking at possibly including a pitch to Diamond for some of our titles. But not every title is ready for a Diamond distribution. Some titles are doing just fine with basic website distribution or mailing list distribution or convention distribution. Some have stepped it up and are doing really well with Kickstarter and social and crowdfunding distribution. And some are ready to take that next leap into that next level. And it's time to level those up. And what it is so like one of the things that I always encourage people to do is like find a group of people that are a little bit better than you, or you challenge one another to be a little bit better. And so you can start to hone your craft. And as a group, you can start to level up together. And and then maybe that group will be ready to do one job together that gets pitched or something. And you've seen this happen. You know, that's what happened with the guys from Image. That's what's happened with a lot of these different smaller publishing houses that's out there. They worked their craft together until the quality of their work became recognized by people in the industry.
And that's, if I can go off of what Luke was saying, Rising Tide is very much part of that. Luke and I met through Rising Tide. We ended up having a hybrid cover for it, or a variant cover on the hybrids. I met Chuck a while ago, but it's all formed into a coalition, if you want to call it that. That's the way I'm looking at it, of creative entities that we're all going to build something that's awesome. You know, we might not always be involved with each other on every book, but I think it's going to just be a great segue in comic creation. But I'm saying to Luke, you're exactly right, and I think that one of the things too, though, Meredith, is what you were talking about earlier. I think that, you know, pitching to an editor or pitching to a publisher, for me, it was getting recognized that your stories are valuable, that they're worthy, and it's getting out in print. And that's one of the things I chose comics, because I knew I could get out in print fast. And that was something that now, having done that, now I can step back and now I can feel comfortable enough having somebody edit it down, bring it to the point where they can sharpen that pencil a little bit, shine the turd, so to speak. So, and that's, you know, that's where I'm at as far as developing stories. But like Luke said, you want to find people that you're inspired by and that are going to be creative entities, not dragging you down. That's, you know, like in any business, but especially and I mean, this group right here, this is dynamic. I mean, the 4 people that I'm on this with, this is just great. I mean, this is a very good panel. But
yeah, you know, and I for my notes, I actually wrote down distribution, because that's going to be a topic. And I know that's not that's not a newbie type of discussion to have, but one that I think needs to be had, because I don't think a lot of people understand the differences, the nuances between, you know, what you were saying is like the mail order distribution, or trying to go, you know, play with the big boys and things like that. But, you know, for this panel, I really wanted to kind of get the perspective of you as the editor, like what you are looking for as far as content, because, you know, I do edit stories, but they're people who are kind of already in the network. And I don't get a lot of unsolicited manuscripts or stories and things like that. And I'm sure that you guys are inundated with it. Don't hold back. Tell me how you feel about the unsolicited manuscript.
Chuck.
We're big. We're wearing our big boy pants here.
But our listeners who might recognize themselves.
Chuck, you started off, and I'll finish it off. Okay, I'll finish it off because I have some strong.
Okay, we've got the devil going down to this week. All right, that sounds good. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well,
you.
We're specifically talking unsolicited, correct?
Unsolicited.
Okay. Here's the first thing. Don't you dare. Okay? And here's the reason, all right? So, you know, it's very easy to become my friend. And with all these guys, it's very easy to become their friend. It's very easy. We're all people who, we give a crap. We want to see you do well. That's great. I can't tell you how often one of my friends will then say to me, hey, dude, I've got this script I'd love for you to check out. So the other day, and actually very recently, this guy comes to me and he says, I got the script I really want you to say. I really want to hear your ideas on it. And I said, you know, man, I don't mean to be rude, but this has to be said. No, that's really rude. And the reason why it's rude is I do this for a living. So what you're saying is, hey, you know that thing you get paid for? I don't want to pay for it. Fuck you. And you know, like they don't understand. So you have to find a nice way. yeah, absolutely. You have to find a nice way. So I did. I said, dude, no offense, I get paid for this. So to just send me a script, that's not fair. You know, because what you're telling, it's not necessarily what you're telling me, it's what you're telling the people who do pay for it, and that is you're a bunch of suckers. I can get him to do it for free. And that's not fair. So I said, and it was just a little script that he wanted to tool around with and play with as like a fan script. So I said, okay, how many pages is it? Now, guys, if I ask you how many pages is your script, what pages am I talking about? Am I talking the length of the script or the length of the comic?
Length of the comic.
Comic, right?
Thank you. So I said, how many pages is it? They said 4. I was like, okay, I'll look at a 4-pager for you. First off, it was 4 pages of script, but it was 12 pages of comic, which I can tell you already ain't gonna work. If you can fit 12 pages of comic into 4 pages, it's not gonna happen. It's before we even get any further. But and they said everyone who's seen it has loved it. And so I went over and I said, look, no offense, but they're not gonna. And this was like I said, it was a fan script, so it was of an actual title out there. And I said they're not gonna pick this up. So everything happens out of nowhere. We've got no motivation for any of our characters. We don't know why anything's happening. Like you have some fun moments and you have some cute scenes. You need to turn that into a story because there isn't one here. And they were like, "Oh, I didn't expect you to be mean." I'm like, You came to me. Okay, like, this is my job. If you want your mommy to tell you that you did a good job, go to mommy. But if you want to get better, feel free to come to me, and I'll tell you you ain't there, and this is what we can do.
Right.
So, one of the greatest stories. I'm just to step away from this for a sec. Actually, no, we'll get back to it. That's my story for that. So yeah, unsolicited. Don't do it.
I'll be honest with you. I pay for that kind of abuse from Chuck. I really do.
You did. And he liked it.
Saves you $20 downtown.
I thought he was talking about me there for a minute. I'm like, oh crap, man, I'm done.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Ted. Go ahead. Ted.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one thing that a new writer should realize, that if a company doesn't print contributor guidelines, chances are they don't want to see it. And of course, the minute I announce that I'm starting my publishing concern, of course, everyone comes out of the woodwork with, "Hey guys, have you heard this before? Yep. Hey, now you can publish my story."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's why I set up my business, Tin Horn. Or somebody will see that you publish something, and so that's then they send you something. And I'm one of those guys. I'm like a whole lot of people. My attention span shot to hell, and so I want an elevator pitch. And I tell people, if you want to run a story by me, say for one of the anthologies, give me 2 sentences. Well, I don't have it written yet, but I want you to publish me. That's nice. Have a nice day. Or somebody will send something that, well, I know you don't publish this sort of thing, but I got one submission that said it's better than. And they named a very popular merchandising company, shall we say. Let's call it Masters of the Universe. That wasn't it. And it was like, you'll love this. It's better than Masters of the Universe. And I'm like, well, what's the name of it? Well, it's called so-and-so, Better Than Masters of the Universe. He sent me the cover and it said, big letters across the thing, Better Than Masters of the Universe. Had a big bubble in there and said, Better Than Masters of the Universe. That's okay. That's thanks for nothing. But that's why I cherry pick the people that are in my anthologies currently. But that is one thing, people don't do the research on what you do. And that's key. Know who you're sending it to. And like I said, I want to see something short, because that'll tell me everything I need to know about your story. If you can jam it all into 2 sentences and 2 breaths, and you can make me go, well, can I hear a little bit more? Then I know you've got something really cool there. But don't make it sound like I've just asked you about your Dungeons and Dragons character, and then 2 hours later you're just getting to their stats. Right. So it's like, know your audience, whether you're a writer or contributing or pitching or what. And there's a reason why DC and Marvel specifically say in their legal information, we do not look at unsolicited manuscripts. So
Luke, I know you want to finish. Let me jump in for 2 seconds. And I'm with you 100%, Brian. The one thing that gets me is etiquette. And I did on my YouTube channel a thing about con etiquette. My thing is that since I'm an artist, I get pitched portfolios like all day long, and I'm flattered. I'm completely flattered. But I don't have the time to look at it, and I don't have I really don't. If I've got a story about one person bringing me a manga storyline and using how the special forces did this and they're 30 minutes into their conversation, like you were saying, before they even realize that this isn't the venue to be doing this in. I'm there to sell my goods. I'd love to, talk to you later maybe, but the etiquette side of it though. And like you said, Chuck, as far as, I get constantly bombarded with, we'll pay you with exposure. Think about the exposure. Think about how much and that's a slap in the face, and it's unfortunate, but the table
unfortunately don't eat exposure.
Right. Exactly. The table pitch though is very hard when you're being pitched at a con like that. And I was so careful when I all three of you actually, Brian, Chuck, and Luke, I've sent my work out to, but I was very careful about how I presented it because I respect all of you. Meredith, I respect you too. I don't mean that, but you know what I'm saying. There's a certain amount of finesse that I just don't. I would feel insulted, or insulting doing it any other way. But yeah, there's got to be etiquette, and there's got to be in that. And thank you. And as far as the etiquette on that, it doesn't have to be a gatekeeper mentality. I don't mean that, but there's got to be some type of, when you go to a con, you maybe not want to do that. You might that's why I put out that YouTube. And maybe we should do that. Maybe we should do a YouTube video where we go through how to besides this, how do we actually talk to editors, or how do we talk to publishers, or how do we talk to people in the art world, at cons. But okay, sorry, Luke. A little long-winded there.
No problem. Yeah, start with what Chuck said. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. If I didn't ask for it, don't send it to me. Here's the thing. We're all very busy, and many of us actually work full-time jobs on top of our full-time job of trying to create and publish and do all the marketing. Because here's the thing. If I'm not drawing, I have to. So when I'm marketing my book, I'm not drawing it. And if I'm drawing it, I'm not writing it. And if I'm not, and so I can't do all of these things at once. And so the time that I have is very limited and very precious. If I'm doing one of these right here, I'm not creating. I'm not lettering. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And I'm also not spending time with my family, which is my first priority.
Sure.
And so when you send me something that I didn't ask for, what you've done is you said, look, I know that you're too nice to be a jerk to me about this. So what I want you to do is I want you to take more time away from your job that you do full time, from your art and creation, and from your family. I want you to take time away from all of those things to tell me how you feel about my stuff. It's incredibly rude. It's incredibly rude. If you're going to pitch something to someone that, hey, I want you to take a look at this, don't give them homework. I had someone want to buy, were pitching a script, and I was too nice to say no, that I wouldn't read it. So I went ahead and read it, but it was unedited and it was not readable. English was not their primary language, and you could tell. It wasn't the fact that it was just some broken English here or there. It was the fact that words didn't translate properly. And so it wasn't an adequate translation. I said that before anyone will buy this, it needs to be edited. And they're like, oh, well, if someone buys it, I can afford to have it edited. I'm like, you don't understand how that works. But what you gave me was 23 pages of reading through something that is homework. I have to try to decipher what you're saying. It's poorly written, and you don't have a finished product. So always send an elevator pitch, give a couple of finished pages, and for crying out loud, only do it if I ask for it. Yeah. Only give it to me if I've asked for it. And be respectful of that. Ted has shown me his work, and he was very respectful about that. Yes. Do you mind if I show you something? Sure. Let me see it.
I used that line on my wife about 20 years ago. Still married.
It's been working ever since.
Yeah, but don't give people homework to do. Make sure that you are.
Absolutely.
Make sure that you have your two or three sentences to definitely communicate what that is supposed to be. Let me know who's going to like it, and show me the bulk of it. Show me you've got something finished. And I think any publisher, that's what they want. Show me that you can deliver. If you've never once ever drawn a comic, don't ask me to come draw my comic.
Mhm.
Draw a comic and then do it.
I'm a very deliberate person. You see that banner there?
Yeah.
You know what's the most important word on that banner?
Freelance.
Freelance.
Mhm.
I'd like you to look at my stuff. Great, because I'm freelance. You can pay me.
Yep.
That's
Freelance,
what it's
not
for.
free.
Yes.
Yeah. The free, that's not the part. It's a one long word, and freelance means ain't free.
So this guy kept bugging me for my feedback, right? And I said, and my question was, okay, it's a lot. I'm reading it. I'm busy, and I'll do it on my free time as I can do it, right? Well, he was like, you promised feedback, and bugged me every day for feedback. And finally, I asked the question. I said, what kind of feedback are you looking for? And then he didn't answer me. And then he said, hey, you said you would give me feedback. Where's the feedback you promised me? And I said, I asked you, what kind of feedback are you looking for? Do you want me to go through and tell you the notes on how you can make this better? Or are you just wanting to know if I like it or not? He goes, well, do you like it? No, I don't like it. Well, why not? So, well, it's poorly written. It's not, it's confusing, and it's just kind of boring. Well, that was harsh. Well,
we're adults.
You asked for feedback. I gave it to you. At this point, our relationship is now, it's now over. You want to know if I liked it. I can tell you why I didn't like it and how to make it better so I would like it, but that's not our relationship, And so when you start asking for feedback, also tell them what kind of feedback you want. Just let me know if you like it. Okay? Because Chuck can be really harsh on a script if you ask him to be.
Yep.
And he has been. I've handed him a script and I said, look, I'm not sold on all of this. You can feel free to rip it apart. I need it to be better. And sometimes I'll start the conversation like that. Hey, Chuck, I just emailed you a script. I kind of hate it.
Which is the greatest thing you can say, by the way.
Yeah. I'm like, I kind of hate it. So let's work from there. And then we go at it, but that's the relationship. And I pay him for his time. Because I value the fact
that's extremely important. That's a
he's
huge
taking
thing.
time away. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's huge.
I think it's just a basic respect for somebody, well, first of all, as a person who I've always had a hard time saying no, and I've learned to say no to certain things and to certain projects because I've learned, and it took a long time to say, hey, my time is valuable and I'm dedicating it to this. And so when you say yes to something, you are taking that slice of your time and dedicating it to something else or somebody else because you care or you see something in them or they pitched you really well. And so there's that value, but there's that respect for the time that it takes to actually take it, read it, think about it, chew on it, and then give them your, the thoughts that'll help them move forward. And I think a lot of people miss that part of it. We do have a comment here about the distribution. I'm going to pull that up here real quick, or it's more of a statement. I would say that, I would say that publishing yourself can be a tool as well. It's an opportunity to see if potential readers are going to be responsive to your title. If you get a good amount of feedback in a positive manner from readers who become fans, you can then pitch it to those distributors as a successful property that is received well and is now ready for extended publication by a distributor.
Absolutely.
So I agree with that. Yep.
And just so people are aware, that's my boy Sean Barber that I did Belial with, and that's exactly what we're doing with Belial. So he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I've seen a number of pitches for comics to other publishers where they'll give like a comprehensive overview of the thrust of the story, main characters, etc., and then pay someone to draw 5 finished pages of the story and include the script. Just make like a little teaser packet that they can just leave with somebody and have their name and address on it. Because, like was like Ted said, you've got other priorities than looking for the next Jack Kirby, to publish. You're trying to sell your stuff, you're trying to network with other professionals, and if somebody does something like that, I'll take that and I'll put it in my little briefcase and I'll read it later when I'm more receptive to it. But a lot of people, to tie into the previous conversation, I did want to make a point that a lot of people, when they pitch, are not really looking. They'd love to be published by other people and let them take on the responsibilities and expenses. But what a lot of people, when they pitch, are looking for validation of their idea.
Absolutely.
They want to be told that their baby's pretty. And then they'll probably go off and try to send it up to DC and Marvel for all the good it'll do them. But and I want to give Meredith a compliment. Recently, she said, "I've got these stories. I want to see if they work. Do you have the time to take it?" And I believe I told you that I can't get to it today, but if you'll wait like a day or two, I will gladly look at it. And then I went back and told her that she was brilliant, amazing. We've been friends ever since because I know how to butter up people. Anyway, but I told her quite honestly, there's, I would do this and this and this, and this thing's good to go. But the fact is, Meredith did respect my time, and my, whatever she perceived as my, my competence in being able to look at a short story and tell if it's any good or not. And a lot of people, you've got to be ready to be criticized. I've never said anything to Chuck yet, and that'll be a highlight of my life, probably sending it to Chuck, because the best advice I've ever gotten was hard. It was like, don't worry about my feelings, let me have it.
Yeah.
And that's been, and of course, when I review things, I try to pass on that cycle of abuse to others and, try to destroy their hopes and dreams in one fell swoop so they don't bother me again. But other than that, but I would say also be prepared for criticism, because honestly, some people don't know how to deliver criticism.
Right.
Too.
You can be assertive. You can be assertive and not insulting. I've said that countless times, and I think that's one thing Chuck's got, to where he's not so arrogantly, that presence that you actually absorb what he's saying. Not you're completely screw you. You know what I mean? Walk away. It's not like that at all. And in fact, I would feel weird if people were that aggressive. I would walk away from that. That's not a productive relationship at all. So.
Yeah, here's the thing. Whoever you are making a book right now, you're not making the next Watchmen. You're not. Let's just throw that on the table now. You're not doing that.
Yep.
But that's not what this is about. And every book shouldn't be about doing that and being that next thing. It's about telling a really good story. So when you're coming to me and you're saying, "Hey, I want to use you as an editor," I'll say, "Okay, well, what do you need? Why do you want me?" Questions like that. And a lot of times it's like, "Well, I heard you're good." You're right. You heard that for a reason, because people, and it's not "you're right, I'm good." It's "you're right, people said that." That's it. That's how they feel, and good. That's great. That's what I want them to think. Whether it's real or not, we'll see. But and I'll just say, look, I can look at your stuff, but my job is not to make that the Watchmen. Your job is not to make that the Watchmen. Our job together is to make that the best version of itself it can be. So I'm not here to tear your script apart and say, "No, this is how it's going to be the best thing ever." No, it's going to be cool. So what is your audience? Who do we want to hit? What demographics are we going after? What is this? Is it a single issue? Is it a one shot? Is it an ongoing? Is it a graphic novel? Is it a miniseries? We need to know all these stuff so that we can then go, cool. So this is what we're gonna do to make that the best version of what it's gonna be. So
I give people 3 questions to answer. This is what I typically do. What are you making? Who are you making it for? And why are you making it? Tell me. Do you have a thing that you need to say, or are you just trying to make some quick money?
Who, what, why?
That determines. Yeah. Who? Yeah.
Who, what, why.
Who?
Okay. What? Why?
Like, what are you making? Who are you making it for? And why are you making it? What's the point?
Okay.
That's what I ask people. If they can't answer those 3 questions, and then I ask them what they do with the cart when they're done with at the grocery store, because that tells a lot about their personality.
It does.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Because here's the thing that drives me crazy, and I've heard that people do it, and I don't know why. As a creator, if you are seeking to find an audience and you want to send your script or your story to somebody, do the research on the people that you're sending it to, because let's just say, because I knew that Brian had the Nightmare Collective, right? So I knew that he likes these spooky stories and things like that. Spencer Spook, all of this stuff. Exactly. So it's like, okay, I have a collection of short stories that are kind of in the horror and the thriller genre. I'm not going to send that to a sweet, a person who reads and writes sweet stories. I want somebody who appreciates the gore and stuff like that. So I'm sure that you guys have received stories and things like that. They're like, do you know anything about me? I mean, that's got to be really frustrating for you guys. How do you handle that? Is it, do you stomp it right away? Are you gentle about it? I mean, like, what do you do when you see that? I mean, because that to me seems like such disrespect.
I'll start with this one. And this was someone who wanted to be an inker for my books. Okay. All they saw is that I was doing a book and it was doing well. And they said, hey, you know what? I see you're doing a book. I'm an inker. Their sales tactic was to insult the artist of the book.
Not good.
Yeah. Well, see, that tends to be a little problem, because if you know anything about my book and you open that up to the first page,
you're the artist,
creator, writer, artist, right there. And I'm like, so you're trying to get a job. You want some of my money, but you're going to do that by insulting me?
Wow.
So I don't care if you're the best inker in the world. You're not working for me.
See ya.
It's not going to happen. Yep. Sorry, dude.
Shitty inks on that book.
Did he ask for your autograph then?
Yeah.
No, it's funny. It's funny. After that, I haven't gotten any more messages from that dude.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm like, and he's a decent inker. He works on some other stuff that I've seen come out, but I'm like, dude ain't working for me, because that's not the way. Know who you're pitching to. If it's to get a job, if it's to get art, don't insult the art of a book where the writer is the artist. That's not how you do it. You can sell yourself without downselling somebody else.
Sure.
You can be like, you know what? The writer on that sucks. You need me to edit it. No, that's not going to work, because you're just insulted the writer, and he doesn't want to hear you insult him. You want to be like, hey, you know what? That's got some really strong points. A little bit of editing could go a long way. I think I could help you. I think I could help you take it to the next level. That kind of stuff. If you'd be like, I think I could really make your artwork pop. But he didn't know that I was the artist, because he didn't pay attention. He didn't take 2 seconds to look at the thing that I was drawing, that I'm the writer and the artist. And he didn't even take the time to do that. Take the time to look at and if someone has like submission guidelines, follow them to a T. Do it. Do what they ask. And if they don't write you back, it's probably because you didn't follow the directions. Yeah. No one wants to work with someone that can't follow the directions. And I don't want to work with someone who makes a comment like, you know what, that inker sucks. I could do better than that.
Yeah, I'm kind of turned off by negativity anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a lovely shirt you're wearing, Luke. You'll get my proposal next week. Anyway, no, and that's the thing. I don't want to deal with anyone who's negative in the first place. The aforementioned contribution. When the first thing I see is we're better than so and so, and he did follow up saying, "Well, why don't you take a flip through it?" And I told him frankly, I don't even want to look at it. I really don't, and I can cite legal reasons why. If I accidentally do something,
right.
But if he got insistent about it, I would go back and say, well, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go antagonizing another person's IP owner, right. And I'm not gonna do it on the cover and every frickin' page throughout the whole book. I don't even want to get involved in that. I want to work with positive people who are on the same wavelength I am.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. There was this publishing company. I won't mention the name, but I will mention another name. And they had this big masthead, and it said their name, and then it said the biggest comic company in Texas, and I went,
Wow.
you know, Antarctic Press is in Texas, right? You know that they've been working for 35 years. Who the f are you? Like, and I have no attachment to Antarctic Press, but like, who are you? What are you saying? And it's like, it's that level of complete, like, just like, you're not thinking, man. I understand wanting to be a little braggadocious and having a little bit of ego. That's all right. But come on, man. Like, it's not even cute at that point. It's just, it paints you in such a negative light. And I'll tell you, they did get called out, and I have not seen that masthead since. It was not mentioned. It was just something like, it's gone. And it's like, yeah, that was a really stupid thing to say. You know what? Even if Antarctic had said we're the biggest in Texas, I'd be like, yeah, but so what? Like, what's the point? There's still another 50, another 49 states. What's your point? Right. And there's the whole rest of the world. So, what games are you playing?
Who cares? You might be the biggest right now, but somebody else gets one more title on their catalog than you, and now they're the biggest.
And you're knocked down, right?
Yeah. What does it even mean, and what does it matter? Who the biggest is? Yeah, I say win by positivity, not negativity. Sure. I want to work. I'm with Brian. Sure. I want to work with people that are nice.
Sure.
And I get it. I work with Chuck as an editor because Chuck gets what story I'm trying to tell. I'm going to look into the camera because I'm serious. I knew I needed an editor that was going to work with all of my projects congruently, one right after the other. And I wanted to find someone that understood what I was trying to say and would understand the characters and would care about the thing, but wouldn't, would be able to help me rip it apart, but with grace, in the way to say, I want to preserve the character and the story. And that's what you're looking for. Someone who cares about the product, who cares about the IP enough to say this needs to be ripped to shreds and dissected and put back together in this way, because it serves the characters and it serves the message you're trying to say more than anybody's ego. And it can't be about ego at the end of the day when you're working with people that in that kind of environment. You have to be able to work together. And it's okay to have a little bit of ego, like Chuck said, because most creative people do have an ego, and most arguments that you find in the creative world, it's because someone's ego got hurt, because those egos are often very large and very fragile. And so you do experience those things, but it's about, when you're trying to create good books and good stories and good novels and things like that, you have to check a little bit of that ego, and you have to find someone you trust to work with.
That's one reason I put Chuck editing mine. So that's, that was exactly. He didn't realize he was being interviewed for like 2 days, but you were.
There's another guy who's really good.
And then my wife got on the phone. So that was even something else. But
anyway, good. That was fun.
That was great. But yeah, I can totally ditto to what you're saying.
What were you saying, Luke?
There's another guy who's really good. I think it's Steve Cole. Is that how you say his last name? Colle?
So let's be straight. Steve is my mentor. Like, if you like what I do, Steve has a lot to do with that. Like, I look up to that dude huge. So yeah.
Yeah. Steve is really good. He's another one that I would say, if you're looking for an editor who's going to care about your IP, go to him. He's not going to sugarcoat it, and it's okay. If you go there to get your feelings hurt, then that relationship's not going to work. But that's
one thing I absolutely love about Brian is that he will pinpoint the most positive thing that you could possibly say about somebody's book. He might not tell you everything that's wrong with it, but he'll say the potential is huge or something along those lines, to where you can hear the smile.
I really
you can hear the smile over the phone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's like I said, encompassing yourself with the most realistically positive people. I mean, Dale Carnegie, how to influence, or how to win friends, influence people. Yes. Know your audience. And don't BS them. I mean, do it because you have compassion and empathy, for them. Like Luke was saying. I mean, that's what you want to do. That's how those stories, that's the best way a story is going to come out. The best way.
Mm-hmm. And see, for me, I'm approaching this completely humble, because I'm coming out of the bank, I'm coming out of the gate, and I'm saying, I don't know shit. Now, I have a certain amount of knowledge because I have been in publishing, so I understand some of the rudimentary things. But when it comes to seeking out the editors and things like that, we spoke about this earlier. The networking is so important to find the people that you want to work with, to know what they work on so that maybe you can be adopted into the group eventually. But I mean, you have to cut your teeth somewhere, but you can't come in all aggressive like I know things and my shit don't stink and all of that stuff. I mean, you just can't do that. Go ahead, Chuck, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I actually have it. So at the first convention I ever did, I was sitting next to a guy who was doing a book for a major publisher, and also on their table was a DC book. So right away I'm like, whoa, how am I sitting next to this dude? And because we're both in the Texas circuit, we talk a lot, we hang out a lot, like very, very nice dude. He's been very warm and helpful and stuff. And so and this DC property, this wasn't like a C-lister. This was a major property that they had on their table. And so at one point I said, dude, why did you just do the one book? Like, did you just decide, screw it? Like, I did that and I can walk away? And he said, no, that editor doesn't work there. What do you mean? And he went on to tell me he networked and he worked his way up and all this kind of stuff and paid his dues. He met this editor from DC. They got very close and he said, hey, I got this. We have this idea. Can you give me a pitch? And so he gave an amazing pitch and I went, cool. So he made that book and that book came out and then it was done. And then he said, hey man, and then he went and he tried to give them another pitch. And that editor said, yeah, I don't work there anymore. He's like, oh, okay. So he's like, all right, well, I'll send one into DC. And he's not even sure they looked at it. And because the thing is, no one else knew him there. And he had already, he did his thing and it did whatever it did. But nobody else knew him. Nobody else could speak for him. So that was that. And he goes back and he keeps making his own books and doing his own thing until he meets the next the next DC editor. Wow. So, that networking is not a joke. And that story hit me really early because I think we all have those pipe dreams. I want to work for this. I want to work for that. So my dream now is, the way I look at it is, I say, cool, I want to meet people and I want to get badges. And what I call badges is that every time I work with a new company, I throw that badge on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I got to work with Marcosian, which is a really good publisher out of the United Kingdom. They have King Kong. I now get to wear that badge. It's awesome. So who's next? Which badge am I going to put on next? I'll put that badge on. And that way it is name dropping, but you're able to say, well, I've worked for this, and this. And that at least says something. So to
what
just
Brian
try
said
to
earlier, build a resume.
What's that?
It was like what Brian said earlier, build a resume.
Yeah. To just make that jump right away and go, hey, I'm gonna go for image. Who the fuck are you? Like, and then who the fuck am I? You know what I mean? I'm not there yet. So I gotta throw those badges on the jacket. And that's fine, man. I know, I get it. That guy was nice enough to say, hey dude, this is the game. And if you don't understand that, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. So
Sure.
I got to get that right away, and it's like, okay, great. And now thank you, Frank. I appreciate that, the comment. I really do. So it means that it's like, cool. Now I understand the game a little bit more. It means, I gotta get those badges. I gotta understand that this is Pokemon. Like in a lot of ways, it really is. If you wanna level up, those things are gonna matter. And it's just a reality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in networking, it's nice to be important, but it's even more important to be nice, as the old cliche goes. Yep. And the thing is, then this is for the viewers here. That's why I'm looking at the camera now. It's because we talk to each other. If you're somebody who is, if you show promise, and I find out that, like my friend, is interested in submitting to someone else I know, I'm likely to say, hey, yeah, I know that person. They seem like, I think they'd be good to work with. Here's maybe a limitation or two, but, I'd say I endorse them completely. I got my first actual writing gig at Tomorrow's when I'd been doing transcribing was simply because the editor, Michael Urey on Back Issue Magazine, liked the quality of my emails that we were sending back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kept telling me, Brian, pitch me something.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I've known people, from referrals. I've been happy to give referrals, and by the same token, we also warn each other about certain people because we want to spare our friends the misery of having to work with you. But not you in particular. You're okay. Just that person.
I like you.
Person's walking. Yeah, I like you, but
the other person.
Skeevy,
not you. I don't like you.
That person that's
one
not
of the people
walking
we like in our audience right now. But it is one of those things where networking is really valuable, and to get a set of peers, people who maybe are a little bit above, a little behind, but you're all supportive. I'm also, my writing group, it includes like romance writers, science fiction writers, which I don't do a lot of, new pulp. But we're always like, you go, keep going, tell us what you're up to. Oh, that's awesome. Keep going. We're not after the same gigs. But we want to see the other person get those other gigs.
I would say another side of kind of that same coin is, when you're working with people that big breaks do happen for, it's easy to get competitive or jealous or things like that. It's like, oh, well, they got the deal at the publisher that I want. I wanted to get a deal at that publisher. I want those kind of things to open up for my career. As sometimes as the little, that little devil can sneak in there, that little greed there, or that little envy devil can sneak in there. There's this other thing that you should look at. Is my name attached to a work that some of those other people did? If you can get your name attached to something where someone else is a credible creator and things are happening for them, anyone that's ever any part of my team, if a good thing happens to them, that's a badge. Like, well, I've worked with so-and-so right here. Check that out. Oh yeah. Check this out. I've worked with so-and-so.
It is a rising tide. Yeah.
Yeah. It is about right. It absolutely is rising tide. Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah. And see, I think one of the things that I truly understand is that by approaching an editor, you have to come at it very seriously, because if an editor says, yes, they want to see your work, you are forging a relationship there. And it is based on trust, because as a creator, as the person who's writing it, and I'm sending it off to somebody, I have to trust that they're going to take it and make it better, as painful as that might be. So it's almost like you have to cut the umbilical cord and you have to entrust your child with somebody else. So when you're seeking out that editor, one, do the research, know who you're talking to, and you have to trust them. They can't be just anybody because you're being a glory hound and saying, oh, well, I was edited by so-and-so. It's got to go way beyond that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What a lot of other people have to get is, especially like, I'm not a submissions editor. I don't work for a big firm. Again, freelance. Remember that. If I work for you, I'm giving you suggestions. You don't have to take any of them. I get the same paycheck whether I give you 100 things and you use 99 of them, or I give you 100 and you use 2. My paycheck doesn't change. Now, if you only take 2, there's a good chance I might say, hey, so remember that credits thing you were talking to me about? We're good. We're good. My name, you don't need to put my name on there. I'd like to. Yeah, I bet you would. I'd prefer you did.
Yep.
Because I didn't actually do anything.
Right.
So no thanks. So those suggestions are there. And you know what? If we don't work well together, like, part of it is trust. And I've had people where I worked with them and they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, you either trust me or you don't, man. And I mean, if you don't, that's okay. Go find someone you do. We can part ways. We can figure out the financial crap, all that kind of stuff. But you have to trust me. You picked me for a reason. And if you don't, fully trust that person, then don't do it. Maybe you're not even ready for an editor. you know, because you have to trust someone eventually. And I can't tell you how often someone's like, you know, I get people and they're like, hey, so, and a lot of people will feel attacked. Trust me, I've seen this 1,000 times. So it's not you. They'll say, yeah, I'd love for you to go over it, but I don't want you to proof it. And I'll say, okay, that's fine. But can you please credit the proofer? Why does that matter? Because your spelling is shit, and I don't want them thinking that I was okay with that. Well, no, but that's a different thing. No. People don't know that. They see editor, and they assume that I think why you are is your, and we're good. And no, anybody who's read my stuff knows that's not true. So, yeah, man, you know, and that might just be what it is. It's like, you know, just say someone else proved it. I proved it. I don't care. Well, but that shouldn't. Look, dude, don't like either do it or don't. Like that's where my line is.
Because at the end of the day, it's still your reputation.
Sure.
And just like you want to wear those badges of, hey, look who I've worked for, look who I've worked with, look who's got a name together. There's some of those things that you just hope people don't find out about.
You're ripping off a badge at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if someone sees that and they go, he edited that? Yeah, you can have that one. That was
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
I don't want to do that. I sewed them on there and I worked very hard sewing them on there. I ain't taking them back off.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yep.
So one of the things that I wrote here in my note, because I'm taking notes as we talk, the networking thing is just so important for anybody who's tuning in. You know, network, find your people, because you might, you know, I may or may not ever work with you guys on a professional basis, but having you on my show to pick your brains and things like that, I love getting those different perspectives, you know, and by doing that, by having those conversations, by running around and sitting on panels with you, by you know, liking your things, learning about you, doing my research and things like that, I have to say, and I love saying this, that a warm introduction is much better than a cold call. You know, because you by having that personality and by being approachable and things like that, and by having that portfolio of work. Now, I don't have a portfolio of comic books, but I have a portfolio of stories. And, you know, in my head, I want to take those and I see the vision in my head, and sometimes I see panels, I do, but sometimes I see it as a script for like, I can see it on the screen, and it's just my imagination, because as I read something, I want to be taken into those worlds. I want to be taken into the story. I want to get lost in it, because otherwise, what the hell are we doing? You know, if we're not entertaining the masses and taking them to the next level. The editor is so huge in doing that. And if you are approaching an editor and you don't think you're going to get ripped to shreds, or that you won't get heartbreak or something like that, you're probably in the wrong field. If that hurts you, if somebody says you need to fix this a little bit, or it doesn't make sense, you know, maybe you need to go back and get some thicker skin, because it is not easy, especially when you're getting rejections or no thank yous, or you're getting ghosted or something, because maybe it's that bad. And open up your ears. I have to say that, because I've known a lot of people who just, you know, you can say no 100 different ways, and until you whack them upside the head with a rolling pin or a sledgehammer, they don't get it. And sometimes they need, I'm going to sound like Simon Cowell here, okay? Sometimes they need to know that they're bad, and maybe you need to pursue something else. And it is dream crushing to hear that, but sometimes there's a bit of truth. And you're not, when and if you ever hear that, it's not because you're trying to be cruel. I mean, for me, I have always been a singer. And I love to sing. And I will tell everybody can sing. Whether you do it well or not is a completely different matter. And it's the same thing in this creative process with the comic books. Everybody has the capacity to create a comic book. Whether you do it well or not is up to you. If you stay focused on it, if you work hard, and some things come easier than others. I mean, some people can draw, they can write a story, they can edit, they can do all of that stuff, and that's great. I hate you, but for those of us who need the help of a network and stuff, we have to do the work.
That actually brings up that's cool, and that brings up I love a good fun story, don't you guys? So I think you guys will enjoy this one. I'm at a show, having a good time. This woman walks up to me and she starts talking about how, very beautiful woman, by the way, and talks to me about how she wants to make a comic, blah, blah, blah. She has an idea. I said, okay, cool. She passed me her card and she said something that I didn't quite hear. I was like, did she say porn star? No, she didn't. Oh, yeah, she did. Yeah, she did, because that was not a comic book writer card. That was a porn star card. So I was like, and she added me on Twitter right away, and I didn't know what to do. And so the first thing I did, and I think all of you married men here will have my back on this one. The first thing I did was walked up to my wife and said,
"Here you go."
Porn star gave me her card.
Right? Exactly.
She added me on, and I told her the whole story.
That's a Kevlar vest, my friend, right there. You did it. Yeah, exactly. You did it.
20 years of marriage, and that's because you walk right up and you say, this is what happened. So I told her the story, and she, laughed along with me, and she said, what are you going to do? And I said, she added me on Twitter. I think I'll send, I'm going to wait a little bit and kind of feel it out, see what happens. If she really gives a crap, she'll message me again.
Yeah. Drink.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Drink. Yeah, right.
She messages me about a week later.
Yep.
And she says, I want to do that comic. Okay. All right. So let's talk about it. So she then goes on to say, I've never written a comic before. I said, okay, well, there's some things that you need to learn, and there's some things we're going to have to talk about and stuff. And she said, well, and we discussed things very frankly. And I told her, I said, look, because she wanted to make a cheesecake, an adult comic, which I was like, okay, you know what? And, of course, she would star in her own book and all that. I said, you're funny because you have the exact opposite problem that every other comic creator has. She said, what do you mean? I said, we all know how to write and can make this happen, but we do not have a fan base. You have a fan base, but you don't know how to write. And she was like, okay, that's fair. I said, so I will work with you. I will help you, but I'm going to double my price because I'm teaching you. Now, when we move on to a second book or whatever, that price will change because I'm not teaching you anymore. But I need you to be aware that first book, it's going to be more expensive because I'm holding your hand. And she said, yeah, that's totally fair. And she's a porn star. She had the money. So she said, yeah. Now, sadly, it hasn't quite come to fruition yet. And she's still trying to find time because, let's be honest, she's making more money in her day job than she's going to with comics.
All day long.
Yeah, right. But that was the way that I confronted it. And sometimes it's like, so I don't necessarily have to tell you that, hey, you suck or you're not made for this world. It's just, look, I don't know if you're ready. You might not be ready for me, or if you are ready, I'm going to have to do a bunch of extra work with you, and that's going to cost extra. Yep. And so your choices are this. You pay me that money and I help you and I teach you and we do that. Or you go out, you learn, you find out what's going on, you submit me a new script that shows me everything you learned, and then I can go, cool, this is my regular price, let's move on.
I would say this is also something that happens. People think once they pitch to a publisher and it gets picked up that the hard work is over. And here's the thing. A lot of publishers actually don't want to even look at you unless you've done a lot of this hard work on your own. Do you have the tenacity to push through, to put out 3 or 4 books when everyone else is saying no? Do you have the, are you willing to put the work in so that you can learn all of those things? Are you willing to submit yourself to an editor's scrutiny in order to be better? Are you willing to do those things? Are you present on social media? What kind of work ethic do you have? How do you treat the people that are around you? How do you treat the people that you work with? Because here's the thing. As being one of the guys that works with Starcross Comics and, having done my own publishing group before, the pitch is only about 50% of the relationship. The pitch will let me know whether or not I want my book sitting next to your book. Your personality and who you are outside of that will let me know whether I want my name sitting next to your name. There's a difference. I care about my book, and I care about the quality of my book and who is associated in the same company and the names that get the books sitting next to each other.
And
but my reputation is more. But I care about my name more. And that's biblical for those of you that may not know that. It's a good name is hard to come by, and it's not something that should be lightly given away. And so your reputation is the best thing that you've got. And I will work with a creator with a great personal reputation, but with less skill, because here's the thing, Meredith, you can learn how to draw, you can learn how to write, you can learn how to letter, you can learn how to color. Those are all skills. Some of those require talent, but you know what, to be honest, some of those are very naturally learned things that you can get better at over time. I had a natural propensity for art, but as Chuck will tell you, from 5 years ago with issue 1 to issue 5, I have progressed quite a bit in my skill as both a writer, as an artist, definitely, and as a letterer. You can see the progress that's in there because those are learned skills.
And as a storyteller, which is a separate thing altogether that people don't understand.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point. That's a good point.
True.
And honestly, if you're dedicating that much time, if you haven't shown improvement, there might be a problem.
Yeah.
There's a reason I'm not an artist anymore for that very reason.
I've seen a few books they were putting books out like 5 years ago, and I saw one they just did, and there was absolutely zero improvement, and there was definitely
really?
Wow.
Yeah.
But that improvement might not even be it might not even be a lack of practice. A lot of times it's simply you're in an echo chamber, dude.
Yeah.
Everyone's telling you that you're good, or you've decided to believe that you're good. And so you
There's
think
no room for improvement.
Man, Jim Lee's work 30 years ago and Jim Lee's work now is not the same.
No.
Okay? Because they're constantly learning, they're constantly evolving and working. And so if you're not evolving, then you haven't set a bar. You're happy with where you're at. And I'll tell you, the one thing about a real artist is we're almost never happy.
Yep.
I'm going to joke with you and have a good time. But with my own work, I can do better. I'm going to do better next time.
Somebody asked me, it's like, Luke, well, how it's some people are having, I have progressed quite a lot in a short amount of time. In 5 years, I've progressed a lot. And even over the course of this whole lockdown with, things, the way things have been, I've progressed from issue 5 to the Serafina, to the 4-pager, to the next book. Everything's improving. They're like, well, how is it that you've improved so much? It's like, well, number one, I'm practicing more. But I'm listening to feedback about what's good and what's bad. I'm keeping the things that people say look good, and I'm working specifically on the things that don't look so good.
Yep.
And I'm honing in my practice and doing it. And that's exactly why this one particular person, who I won't name, has not improved, because they're in an echo chamber. Their friends and their family that continue to give them $5 or so for their comic keep telling them that what they do is great. They don't have any more readers. They don't have any more. They're not pushing themselves to go anywhere beyond it. And they're not listening. They're in that echo chamber. And so I don't want people to tell me, oh, that looks good. When people start telling me it looks good, I'm like, yeah, that's great. But point out the mistake. Show me the mistake, because I know there's always at least one mistake in there. And so that's how you improve. When people point out like, hey, your storytelling could be better if you did this. Well, that's how you get better. You have an editor that tells you, well, your lettering could be better if you did this. Well, tell me what makes it better. You only improve when you do that. And if you allow yourself to be opened up to that kind of relationship with someone, then your work will improve. Your storytelling, your writing, your lettering, your art, your coloring, everything about you, and you also, by default, here's one thing that people don't say, that when you open yourself up to constructive criticism, and how you respond to that also improves your name.
Yes.
and your reputation with people.
Yes. Yes.
Like, oh, they're easy to work with because they take it serious. They don't take it personal. They take it serious.
That's a good point.
And that's an excellent point, because one of the things I had to learn early in my own writing career was that, constructive criticism is awesome because, like Luke said, you learn from it, hopefully. That's how you can tell when somebody's giving you bad criticism, because they might look at your work and say, oh, you're a terrible writer, or, you're something more personal. Whereas somebody will point out something that's wrong or right with your work. And I've become bulletproof. Yeah. Cause when my early stuff was rejected, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm horrible. I'll never work again. I didn't work to begin with, but it's never going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a failure as a human being. But all the person's looking at, the editor or the publisher or whoever's acquiring the work, they're looking at the work itself, and that should be the focus of the criticism. And the writer, the creator, should remember that
Sure.
They are not being personally insulted. It is your lines on paper, or the ones and zeros you put together, or the words, and everything is learnable. There are many incredible books out there that teach every aspect of comic production or book production. And there's this thing called the internet, that you go there and you just ask your question, and you're going to get a whole lot of pseudo experts, but if you sift through it with the right kind of mind frame, you'll find the information that you need and can use.
I wanted to talk specifically about that. So that the biggest question, that's Russell Allen said that the biggest question to ask when they tell you it's good is, what's good about it? Most people can't answer that question because some buy to show support, but don't even read it. So you'll have somebody who goes, I don't know, I just like it. That's lovely. Thank you. I appreciate the support. That is as far as that advice will help you.
That's right.
But if they can then say, well, I like it because I really liked what you did with this or that. I love this scene that you did. And you're like, okay, cool. Now I have a better idea of what works. And it's also the same thing with the negative. Someone says, I didn't like it. What didn't you like it? Because it sucked. Oh, cool. So do you. No problem. But then if they say, well, you know what? I really didn't feel like there was any depth to the characters. And then you can go, okay, wait, is that true? Let me look at that. And, it either is or it isn't, or you can agree, or you can say, well, actually, they're not completely wrong. And so now you know that you can work on something. So the real criticism or whatever, whether it's constructive or positive or negative, the real important stuff is when they can actually pinpoint what it is. And then that's up to you to decide if that's true or not.
Yeah, I actually sent my books out to Travis the other day and yesterday. And so he's getting them, and he asked, well, when I get them, do you want me to tell you what I think about them? And I said, yeah, only if you like them. But obviously I'm joking, I'm out there joking. I'm like, I welcome that criticism as long as it's respectful, as long as you're not trying to like hurt me as a person. I'm going to take that and read it, but of course I don't let everybody just criticize my work because they haven't been through all of the work. They're not a part of all of it, and all they want to do is make themselves feel better by tearing me down. I don't want to be around those people, but there are people like Travis and Rob and the people on this panel and a few others that I'm like, hey, just go ahead and let me have it, because I know they're going to be respectful, but I also know they're going to try to help me get better through my work, through that criticism.
And I think that's so important, is if you can't be honest with the reason why you're submitting your work, then you probably can't take the honest criticism either. Ted, go ahead. You were saying something.
One of the things, my career before I was artist author, I was in architecture. So I did a lot of inspection work and a lot of handicap accessibility, that type of boring stuff. But what I did was I looked in buildings for the bones. And the same thing goes with an editor, because they look for the bones. So my stories might not be ready for certain avenues, but the bones are good. You know what I mean? So when you're looking at it from a standpoint of architecture, like Chuck and I were talking about foundations and how foundations are built, build structures. You don't want to build on sand. There's a lot of things you can go by. When you're dealing with, you don't necessarily need an architect to build a shed, but you need an editor to at least get that foundation going to the point where you can put a roof on the cap, you know. So when you're looking at stories, and that editor can see the bones for what it is, can see that remodeling project, if you want to call it that in an acronym, but that is a real talent that not many people hold. And then they can do that assertively and not insulting. Chuck, not insulting, which you don't. I'm just teasing you. But no, I'm just saying that as far as when you're looking at it from a standpoint of not an editor, you almost need. Not everybody can swing a hammer, and it's something to where you really, to build that structure, you need to have the right professionals. And I'm a firm believer in your vibe attracts your tribe, and that's something that I firmly believe on that. You got a friend there, Chuck?
I do.
Who's this?
He wanted some love. It's his Finn.
Cool.
Dogs are so much better than people.
Yep.
They are.
Yep.
And I don't see the name here, but on the comment, I had it up on the screen. It says, "Don't be your own editor. Don't be your own editor. You always need eyes outside the circle of the title to make a look and evaluate what you've got. You will make assumptions and natural bridges between thoughts when working on your own stuff because you know your intention. Editors point out the weak spots that unassociated readers will notice." And for me, again, it's just being it's really hard to be objective about your own work. There's a reason why doctors don't operate on family members, because you can't be objective and a lot of times make bad decisions and things. As a writer, when I've tried editing my own stuff, it is very hard, and sometimes it's about budget, and sometimes it's about time, maybe it's pride, whatever the case might be. But there are times when if you're sending out something, and let's just say I sent out a story to Chuck, and he sends it back, and he says, "Well, this section doesn't make any sense." So, "Well, why, Chuck?" He says, "Well, it's not really moving the story forward. Do you really need it there?" And if you can take that and chew on it instead of being all butthurt about it,
right.
And just really and then try to look at it with fresh eyes. Maybe you need to take a couple of days off so you can get over being pissed off at Chuck, and just say, okay, it's like, okay, I'm over myself, I'm over what he said, and but it's in the back of your head because somebody said your baby's ugly. It's like, okay, well, let me take a look at that part. Let me see if I can fix that. And then it moves you forward. But again, you have to be humble and you have to be open to those.
You got to be humble.
That's so important.
So it's a funny story. I always love these stories and how these work out. But I was having a conversation with someone today. And now as a project manager, I'm often telling people, it's like, well, why do you feel like you have to do every aspect of your book? Like, you're a great writer, or you're a great artist, or you're a great colorer, or you're a great letterer, but you're not great at all of those things. Now, I do all of those things, but I do it because I didn't have anyone else that would work on my book. I didn't have anybody else that wanted to collaborate. But now I'm kind of at a point where it's like, utilize the skills of other people that are around you and create that team, because their work being better than yours in that area is going to elevate you. Mm-hmm. And so today I actually had, I was talking with a writer who has amazing credits. Okay. And I am only a good writer when I spend a lot of time on it and I have somebody help me through it. Issue 1 of Hybrids was okay. It's only okay. It has a lot of issues. Chuck will tell you it has a lot of issues. Anyone who's read it will be like, it's okay. It has some issues. Issue 2 got better. Issue 3 got better. 4 got better. But as soon as I started working with people that would scrutinize the work and so I could pace it better, it got better. By the time I had Chuck actually working on the entire script with me for the Serafina and the 4-pager, those are 2 of the best things that I've ever written. And this guy has some amazing writing credibility. And he says, "Hey, so you've got this all arced out and you know what you want each issue to do, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Would you mind if I take a crack at the script for issue 6? And I was like, he goes, "Why don't you?" Because he goes, "Look," he goes, "you're telling a good story." He goes, "But you need to specialize on your art because that's what you're wanting to do, right?" He goes, "But I specialize on writing scripts." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, you kind of got a point. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's see it. And so he's actually taking the script that I've already kind of roughed and the outline that we've been working on with Chuck and some other people. And so I'm like, all right, let's see what this guy's got, you know? And if I like it, if it's good, then, you know, we might have a new partnership here. But if it's not any good, I'm not out anything by letting him write one of the scripts, you know, but can he, you know, so I spent 4 hours today talking with this guy, going through the entire lore of everything that nobody else knows about this story, because that's the only way you can write it and know how to write it, is if you know all of these other details. He has to know all of this stuff that's going on, so he understands the motivation of every character. 4-hour conversation today. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm going to hand over my baby
Sure.
to someone else who has credibility with publishing records that are better than mine. It's a little intimidating, but at the same time, someone wants to apply their work to your IP. That's also a little flattering. So, I mean, take that for what it is. Don't feel like you have to do all the parts yourself.
Yep.
You know, you can write it and edit it and draw. But here's the thing. You're going to leave some things on the table. You're going to miss some opportunities. But when you start working with a team and allow their strengths to come through, capitalize on that. And at the very least, have someone else edit it. Even if it's for proofing, even if you're just proofing it, let somebody else proof it, because you're going to miss it. But when it comes to telling that story, I told a better story with the 7-page illustration of Serafina and the 4-page Advocator than I did in the 20-page first issue, because I had somebody help me do it. And somebody looked at it through their eyes, knowing what I was trying to say, and got me there.
And one thing, you know, if somebody balks about getting an editor, if you don't like the conversation that you might potentially have with an editor, wait until the internet gets a hold of your book.
Yeah.
Your stroll through hell will have merely begun. So it's best to get an expert in who will look at your work objectively. And maybe they'll take it apart like a jigsaw puzzle, but when they put it back together again, you might get something really good out of it, and you'll learn and possibly need less editing next time.
Yeah. Yep. I understand that.
Yeah, and circling back to what Luke said, that opportunity, somebody approaching you that, you know, you have mutual respect for, might open up a new opportunity for the 6th book. You know, and it's like, that wouldn't have happened unless you were kind of running around in the same circles. Again, it circles back to that networking thing and building trust and building that reputation, because that's something also. You know, if you're out there and you're just kind of blowing yourself up and you are just a peacock out there and there's no merit, there's no meat there, eventually you're going to get called out, because you can only, and this was, I don't know if this was talked about. It was on Rob's panel about faking it. You can only fake it for so long. You're going to get called out sooner or later. And, you know, it's really, I mean, there's a reason why, you know, movies are, you know, some of these movies, they're only a couple hours long. You know, the actors, they're only playing a part. If you're out there playing a part, you can't sustain that, and people will find you out and call you out for being a fraud. And it's so important to what Ted was saying, is that you need that foundation. You need to be willing to put in the work, the hard work, and the dedication to it. And you know, nobody really said anything about consistency out here, and this is something that I struggle with. I struggle with consistency because I have so much on my plate. I have so many tabs open on my computer every single day. And I think part of that is getting organized. So I know we're getting a little bit long here and slightly off topic as far as like what editors are looking for. We've got a lot of value here, but speak to me about the consistency of getting the work done, and you know, what you do to stay consistent, or are you a complete pantster? Who wants to go first? Nobody's raising their hands.
I'll take it. I don't want to appear like I'm all that, you know?
You are.
I am, but I don't want to appear like it. Anyway, but no, consistency is a very valuable thing for for freelancers, especially like back in the heyday of comics, before they had contracts, you got the next job by how quickly you delivered this job. That's the thing, if somebody gives you a deadline and you can make it, and Meredith, I'm from a newspaper background too, so I know the value of deadlines, and they can be rather unforgiving. But if you can make that deadline, if your existence is geared around making your editor's life easier, if they don't have to chase you down to wonder where the work is, if you keep up communication with an editor. I mean, I've been close on some deadlines myself for some magazines, but the first thing I did when I realized I wasn't going to make it, bam, I got on the horn to the editor and saying, hey, listen, can I have this extra time? And
communication.
Communication is key. And you're right, Ted. And it's like, every time I got that extra time I needed. So it's it is all part of being professional, if you will. Meeting deadlines, finding out what your publisher and your editor's requirements are, and sticking with them. And this is in addition to keeping the level of quality consistent, if not improving. Nobody wants to publish something where the guy is just, or gal is just coasting, or it's just a placeholder until the next time when maybe they're inspired. But some people are pantsers and can pull that off. But most of the time, it's the discipline that will show and will help to create the better work, in my opinion.
Yeah, I also think that it goes back to that statement I made earlier about doing more. Like, yeah, you could do it all, but it's also going to slow you down, and you're probably going to burn yourself out in the creative process. Try to specialize a little bit if you can. If you're going to be a writer and an artist, then be a writer and an artist. Don't try to be a writer, an artist, a color, a letter. Don't try to do all of it yourself.
All of it.
I know I can write, and I think I'm kind of proven that now. So I'm okay with being able to, pass that on with some other people and work with some other great writers, because they're going to write things that are going to be harder for me to draw, and maybe outside of what I've typically been doing. And so, but if you're a writer, write stories. I saw a guy who did a book, and he put out the comic, and then he did another comic a year later. And I said, okay, well, where's issue 3? It's like, well, I'm writing it. I'm like, what do you mean you're writing it? You took a year in between this issue and that issue. You should be writing every day. Like, if you're a writer, you write. If you're a singer, you sing. If you're a musician, you play I've got a guitar just out of the view of the camera. I pick up a guitar and I strum it a couple of times a day, if not more. If I'm an artist, I draw. I'm not going to get better at what I do if I don't do it. So if you can, try to specialize. Don't try, and try to partner with people who specialize in something so that you can work together. And most productive comic book teams, like, since we're back on comic books, what editors are looking for. Do you have an established team? Do you have a writer that's going to help with marketing and promoting? Do you have a penciler or an inker, or pencil inker combined? Do you have a colorist? Because that way, when a page gets done, it can be handed off. And it's easier to complete a comic book in a month with 4 or 5 people working on it than it is to create a comic book in a month with only 1 or 2 people working on it. It really, there's just no other way around that.
Sure. Delegating is a hard thing. And especially in as artists, it's extremely hard to release, like you were saying, your baby into daycare. It's a very hard thing, but I think that you're absolutely right. You need to diversify. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. I'm learning that. And it was after the 2-hour conversation I had with Chuck yesterday, I'm more relieved about it, actually. But it has been an epic learning. Everybody has their specialties. Back to architecture. Some people are cement guys. Some people are framers. Some people, it's the same thing goes with this. So I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm totally agreeing with Luke on that one. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Man,
see, and yep.
I was going to talk about consistency still.
Please do, because we were just talking about it.
Consistency.
And, to answer Alan, Russell Allen, yes, that is my book, and I was there this morning. Someone's getting my dirty book.
Nice. Good for you.
Good.
Consistency is so tough. Where you were, where I was when I wrote the first Belial, and where I am now that I'm trying to write the second one, they're not the same spot. I was in a much better place mentally, and where I am now. And so I remember you know what? I'm gonna out my dudes. I love them. I was working on this great book, Dulce, and that first Dulce book came out like almost perfect. You know what I mean? There was very little to change, and a lot of it was just like, hey, what about this? Like, I just think that'd be a neat idea. Oh yeah, okay. But for the most part, it came out really perfect. That book came out like it was asking, begging to be told. And then we worked on the second, and I got that script, and I was like, yeah, it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough to hear, but we're not always in the same headspace, which is why an editor is so helpful, because they're going to try to keep up that consistency for you. They're going to tell you, oh crap, yeah, this one's good, you know, we're there, terrific, or yeah, that's not our step up. You know, and of course with the number 2, that's the difficult thing. You set your bar. You need to at least hit it. And if you haven't hit it, then what are we going to do to hit it? So, you know, having that editor, having that person to step in and tell you, you know, no, we're not there, but this is what we can do to try to get there. That helps with that consistency, I think.
Mm-hmm. So here, so I have a story. Actually, I've got a whole bunch of stories, and I had sent Brian the book. And the reason why I haven't actually published it, because I'm going the self-publishing route, is because I see a lot of these stories, and I see them in my head, and I see the different panels and how they have the potential of turning into comics. And I don't want to downplay, you know, comic books and just say, I have a story and it can be a comic book. It's not like that. It's just that because a lot of these stories, when I write them down, I imagine them so vividly that I can kind of see flipping the pages of them. And, you know, going back to a previous conversation about storyboarding, my books, my stories are not for that purpose. My stories, when I have it, because I love books, I love flipping through the pages and things like this. So this is a passion of mine. So part of the reason why I've kind of sat on it is because I almost feel like I want to pull it apart and see what I can do with it. And in fact, I've got 2 stories in it that I'm using for this project to get me from the story to creating the comic book, 2 that I personally feel are the best candidates for this. And you know, so before I even get to sending it to anybody else, what would my homework be if I said I have a story? What is my homework? As putting your editor's hat on, what would you tell me or anybody else coming in that's got something that's not scripted?
I'll start with that one. Meredith, you said the exact right thing. I want to make this a comic book, not because I think it's easy, but because I think I can imagine it in that medium. If you were going to pitch a comic book, let people know that why. It's that go back to that why, not just the what, who, and the what are you making and the who you're making it for. So I'm making a comic and I'm making it for these people, but I'm making it because I love the comic and I believe the story would translate well like this. I can imagine people doing those. And so you can have a lot of different whys. There can be 4 or 5 different whys. I don't care how many whys, but one of them has to be because you're really passionate about it. So do your homework and understand the medium. So too many times I get people who will pitch a book who don't read comic books. Yeah. They don't. Yeah. They, you know, I'm like, how can you write a comic book if you don't read a comic book? Like, when was the last comic book that you ever purchased? You know, did you even go to the shelf this week and just pick up a book and see what is popular? Ask the store owner what titles are selling the most, and look at it and see what's inside of them. See the kind of art, see the kind of story they're doing. You've got to do your homework with that. So if you have a comic and you don't even have it scripted yet, but you have an idea and a concept, go to the comic store and see if this is really what you want to do, because you're not going to make money on your first comic. I didn't, and most people I know don't. Some people do, and I hate those people for some reason. I try not to, but I do. But for the most part, you don't make money until you're a few issues in. But it's a labor of love, and it's very, very hard to do this thing. And not everyone has the makeup. They're not cut from the same cloth to be able to do a comic book. Because it's a lot easier to write the words and to publish a book. I mean, I don't know if it's, but you're setting yourself to be able to tell more story quicker. more quickly and more concisely, I think sometimes, because when you start working with an artist that's going to translate your words into something else, I mean, it gets very complicated. So go and look at comic books, read them, find out if this is where the story belongs. Does it belong in this medium? Does it need to be a sequential work that's going to be 4 or 5 issues or more? Does it need to be a graphic novel? Does it need to be those things? And then start thinking about what kind of artist you want to capture your look. And say, oh, I think I like this style of art, this style of coloring, and start to get an idea formulated in your head before you script it. That way you can look for the team that's going to really capture your vision, because it's really all about what serves the story. And I'm not the right artist for everything. Bradley Golden was working on a thing called Sun, this thing. And he was looking for an artist. And I was like, hey, I'm willing to work with Bradley Golden. I like the guy's work. I would be happy to do a horror. But he's like, hey, I'm looking for this style. And before we even he started like this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not the guy. That's not what my stuff looks like. You need to find the right guy for that, because I'm not ever going to be able to do that. That's not my style. That's not what I do. And so you understand that the style of the art and the colors and everything actually are going to serve the story first. It's all about serving the story. Don't write a story around an artist that you like. Find an artist that fits the story that you're writing.
That's a good point. Good point.
I love that you said that, because I'm going to put this card up real quick, because this is what I have planned for next week. And I don't have any guests yet because I haven't reached out. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but it is how to write artist for your story or vice versa, because I've been in a few groups where you've got the storyteller who's out there saying, hey, I've got a story, who wants to be my artist? And then you've got an artist who says, I've got this, I can do this. I need somebody to write a story about it. And, so I think that's an interesting panel to do. And then the week after that, so this is, let me just put this up here again. Friday, May 29th, it's going to be a new time, 4 p.m. Eastern, and that is to be in line with the Comic Book Advocating Network. We're going to take over the Friday slot at 4 o'clock. And then the following week after that, June 5th, Critical Elements for a Good Comic Book. And on that, there's a lot of lingo that I'm learning, and I think it would be valuable for people who are on this path with me, or just as a reference for later on, if they're going in there, like, what do you need for a comic book? How, everything, because I've learned so much as far as, like the pencilers, the inkers, the, what's a flat, what's a pagination or a schematic, what is the difference between, the full bleeds and things like that, so there are a lot of things where splash pages, like, what the hell, so a lot of people don't understand, like,
when to use them.
Yeah, when to use them. Yeah, right.
Use them. So these are all things that this journey for me isn't just for me. I am committed to taking that story and turning it into a comic book, and trying to fit it in my time, because I do also work. So but there's kind of like that passion in me where you have to kind of make a decision at some point in time. Is this going to be a hobby, or is this something that you want to make a living from? And I think when you get to that point and you can answer that question, then you know exactly what you have to do next. And it might not be easy, but you take the steps. Then you make that decision. Do I move forward, or do I just kind of put it to bed for now?
And honestly, Meredith, you asked that question at several different stages during your career as a creator. I'm currently asking that question again myself right now. Sure. It's like, I've leveled to this point, but now if it's time to level up, what are the steps that I need to do that? Now, I will say the what's essential to have a good comic story, Chuck would probably say to have Chuck Pineau do your editing, but I don't know that.
Chuck wouldn't say that, but other people might. Now, I wouldn't say that. What I would say, though, is first, outline it. I want to know what your main pillars are. Right there. Not only of that, and I've talked with both of these dudes down here. Outline it. I want to know what the outline of the first issue is, and what comes after it, and what we're leading up to. That stuff is so important, because then you have a very good idea. And I ask most of my clients, let's see your outline. I don't have it. Yeah, you need an outline.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to work with me, and that's not just me being rude, but we need to know where we're going. So if you send me a script and you want to start from there, that's fine. But we're already like, I'm 99% certain that I'm going to tell you, well, this scene doesn't work, or, we need to move these scenes around or whatever, or this ending isn't working, or why did we begin here? Why aren't we beginning over there? So if we have the outline, we can catch those things right away. And you can say, well, okay, I understand why these moments happen, but why are they happening in this order?
Mm-hmm.
Or why are they happening like this? Or why is this part even important?
Right. Your plot holes. Plot holes, big time.
Yeah, or you need this point because you want to get to there, and we need to understand how we get to there. So there's some stuff that you were missing along the way. All that stuff, really important. So you can get an editor on even pre-script, and you can and they can come in and they can step in and they can say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is what your outline should look like. And I love outlines because we get to find our problems even before they script. And then I laugh at these guys who say, oh man, I did 30 versions of my outline. I'm like, I don't mean to be rude. Or no, I did 30 versions of my script, and I'm like, I don't mean to be rude. You're an idiot. Like I don't know how to say it nicely. There's no way to say it nicely. Where was your outline? Oh, well, I didn't do an outline. I want a script. Yeah. I don't want to date a girl. I want to get married. Yeah, well, you better date her first and understand that you're good for her and she's good for you. And are you compatible? And is that going to work? You don't just throw that damn wedding ring on there.
You have to, or else it's an assault. It's assault if you don't do it. I mean, that's really what you got to do, right? And I get an editor right away, like really from the get-go. And we've got, and one of the things, we've got a shared document, a Google document that we're working on. And so really, as I put out the outline, it was like type in a question. Well, why are we doing this? Well, how are we going to do this? And then that helps me because Chuck's asked me questions and Nick has asked some questions like, hey, well, what about this? Because we're trying to tie in the RPG into the comic books. And so we're trying to find some continuity. So we all got to look at this. And so it's like, oh, well, let me answer that question. Or, you know what, you're right. That makes no sense there. That's not even important. But if you start doing that, it makes the scripting stage really a lot easier. It really does.
Also,
sorry. Go ahead, Chuck. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, also, you were talking about you want to, your story, you want to turn it into a comic. Here's what I would say to you. Go grab your favorite comic. This isn't my favorite. It's mine and it's the closest one to me. But grab your favorite comic, read it, but you're not reading it as a fan anymore. So you're going to look at it and you're going to go, why did I turn this page? What made me want to keep going? And usually it's this bottom right panel. What did they do here to make me go, oh, I got to see what's going on? Because especially on that first page, I need to keep moving. And so what caught my eye? Why did my eye move along here the way it did? All that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Even things like, oh, look at this sweet spread. What do I love about that spread? Why is that splash page important? Or why is it not important? Because you might find, read a book and love it. And then when you start to go through it, you might go, actually, I don't think that was a brilliant idea. Now that I look at it, I think that was extraneous, or I didn't need that, or, whatever. I was reviewing a book not too long ago by a very, very famous comic writer. I'm not at that level. But I read it, and I was talking to people about it, and I said, look, I can't write that book. Most of us can't write that book. But the reason why we can't write that book is not because we're not as good as that person, but because we don't have the name to hold people through this opening stuff. And so my readers would have left already.
Wow.
And that's something that you have to understand. And so, like, as I looked through this book, I was like, look, if I wrote this, you wouldn't have made it to page 6. You would have dropped the comic because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why it was there. And I wasn't completely certain what was happening. And for some people, it's like, oh, cool, I got to find out why. But for a nobody, we don't get that luxury. I don't get that. I need to grab you by the crotch right away and go, it's time to do this. Like you got to keep reading. To quote certain presidents.
I just thought it was funny. I was like, oh, so it's comic book Trump style. Okay.
Yeah. And this gives me an idea of what it's going to be like to work for Chuck.
Yeah.
We will try to grab you by the crotch, Brian.
But really, like you gotta get them right away. And so we don't get that opportunity to play those kinds of games. So you have to understand that even though they got away with it, you might not. And so can I do that? No? Okay, cool. Then I can appreciate it and like that they did it and maybe one day try to emulate that, but I ain't there yet. And I can tell you, I ain't there yet.
I had actually picked up a comic book, and the only reason why I bought it was like it was one of the online sales and things, and the cover was just beautiful. I absolutely love the cover. I got it in the mail, and I started flipping through it, and I was like, "Where the fuck's the story?" You know, I mean, seriously, the only thing that was good about it was the cover, and I was so disappointed. I was like, "Oh hell no! I don't want to be that. I don't ever want to be that. There's got to be some kind of a story. There's got to be some kind of a story arc." I was mad. I was so mad because you know what? It's going to be artwork. I'm never going to flip through it again. You know, and I'm like, well, okay, so. And I think that's what kind of prompted this panel was like, where the hell was the editor that said, you know, I mean, I think this for me, I'm a reader and I want that audience. That is my audience. I have stories that I want to share, and the visuals are take it to the next level. That's how I feel about it, you know, about my stories. But when I saw this and it was like the inside, beyond the cover art, I was looking through and it was pretty, but it wasn't outstanding. You know, I mean, I want to say I have fairly low standards. I don't know. You know, I don't know what I don't know. Okay. I will admit that. But I'm going through this and the artwork looked muddied. And there was no dialogue, there was no story, and I was just like, "What the hell is? Why am I flipping through this?" And I'm literally flipping through it, going, "This is okay. This you don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this." And I was so angry.
It sounds like you're an editor. Sounds like you're a creator.
Yeah.
Let's get you making some books.
I have a feeling Meredith's first book is going to be pretty good because she's
I'm
already
just
like,
all
doing
about
the work to
Meredith
do it,
making
yeah.
some books now. Right.
Well, and some of the best books I've read in recent years are people who have
Are
read
fed
bad
up.
books and said,
Yeah,
"Well,
right.
as long as I don't follow that path, I'm going to be okay."
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I don't shred books. I revere them. You know, I take care of. I don't even want to break the spine because I love my books so much.
Sure,
You know, I'm like I read them and I'm very careful with them because I like it tight, baby. But oh, there, Brian. But you know what I'm saying is that it's got there's. I think it's so important to have that. We almost lost Ted. Sorry, Ted. But you know, I mean, it's so important to be well-rounded, and if you don't have that skill, know where your limitations are, know what you have to work on. I would say always be a work in progress. I do that anyway. I'm a constant student of everything because I will tell you I don't know stuff. You know, I could take my experiences and try and put it towards this, and it's just, you know, like as a reference. But I mean, really, I think for the example of books that I want, it's got to have good storytelling. It's got to have good art, and just understanding the fundamentals here. Like Chuck, you know what you said was like planning your page. That's going to be a future panel because it's like, oh, I never thought of that. And I think that's very important for somebody who's learning, because maybe you're not the one who's planning out the page, but I think you should have a fundamental understanding of it. And we've been talking for almost 2 hours, guys.
Wow.
I mean, we could keep going, or we could do the after show. But I mean, if you guys need to go, let's just say where we can find you again. And I just really appreciate the time that you guys took with me. So, I mean, again, I'll leave it up to you. We can keep going, or we can go into at the after party.
I think I'd probably be heading. I do have a meeting soonish, so yeah.
Yep.
I think but there will be more of this. We would love to keep talking to you, and I will speak for everyone in this panel. And if I'm wrong, they'll call me out right away. I'm okay with that. But we're all pretty approachable people, and we told you earlier, don't throw your script at us. But you can come to us and you can ask us a question. You can say, hey, man, I saw your panel the other day. I really appreciated it. Wanted to ask you some stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd love to help you out. Someone helped me out along the way, and I'm sure somebody helped these guys out along the way.
Yep.
And you know what? People are still helping us, and we're still helping other people. So go ahead, man. Bring it up. That's totally cool.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
We're misbehaving here. All right. So, you know what we're going to
in the follow-up to this show, the sequel.
Yeah, I mean, this again, if you believe, if you're out there and you're listening and you believe that you're the smartest person in the room and that there's nothing else to learn, chances are you're the dumbest one.
Yeah.
And I don't pull any punches with that. Just stay humble, always keep learning. It's a process. And I mean, really, if you're not learning something new or pursuing something, or you're saying that you're bored, check yourself, really. And on that note, sorry, that was kind of mean.
But that's okay.
You're learning.
That's authentic. That's authentic. Nothing wrong with that.
I think that comes with age too, because if I was trying to host this and I was like 19 or 20 or even maybe 30s or something like that, this might be a really hard discussion, because at that point I think you probably just like piss and wind. It's just everything and you think you can conquer the world, and at this point I'm like, I'm just glad I'm alive and that I can do this stuff. So on that note, yeah,
age is a dirty word, Meredith. The word is experienced.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
experience. Wisdom.
Yeah, that's the word.
Seasoned.
Seasoned.
Yeah.
Seasoned citizen. Yeah, that's me.
So I'll start off with this because I do need to get off here as well. I'm going to invite people so Monday at 4 p.m. I'm actually going to be taking over the on-con slot over there with the show called the Comics Nuts and Bolts. And so we're going to be going over the various things. We're going to do a deep dive clinic on each step or phase of making comics. And this Monday, we're actually going to be talking about flatting and what is a flat. What are some of the etiquettes for flat, like what some people might ask for, what are file formatting, some programs to use, and how you can actually use flatting as an art form. So some of those things, in case you're wanting to get into the business, maybe it's like, hey, I don't know how to color really well. I don't know how to draw yet, but maybe I can enter the realm of comics by flatting for someone. And so that you might want to learn that. So we're going to go all through that on Monday for about an hour at 4 p.m. And so I'll be broadcasting that. It'll be shared onto the OnCon network. It'll be on my Facebook page and my YouTube channel at The Lou Dog on YouTube, or Luke Stone Studios. You can look it up that way too. You can also find me at lukestonestudios.com. You can find the YouTube channel over there. You can find my Facebook, my Twitter, and all those different things. Don't forget, if you are interested in looking at a new comic, I do have Hybrids, The Sons of Gods, issues 1 through, oh, look, I'll just grab them all because look how pretty they are.
You got that nice variant cover?
It's in the pile of books getting shipped out. So these are just my personal stock in here. So I've got issues 1 through 5 right now going on over at Indiegogo. So if you go to Indiegogo.com and you search Hybrids 5 or or Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, 1 through 5. You'll be able to find that on there. It's also, if you can go to indiecron.com, they've got a listing for it as well. And it actually helps a little bit if we can track it through there to say, hey, someone got it through Indiecron. So that'd be really cool if you could do that and help me out. I've got like 10 days left. I would like to get a couple more dollars on there to just kind of help out the project a bit. And don't forget to go to starcrosscomics.com. You could also buy everything over there, and you can check out a lot of great creators and stuff. And I'll also give this credit. Chuck is the editor. So he did a good job.
Awesome.
Speaking of Chuck, we're going to put you up here on the big screen.
Ooh, okay. Freelance writer, editor. What's up, guys? Chuck Pineau. You can find me on Twitter at ChuckyPim. You can find me on Facebook with that great name right there. You can find me, my Chuck's Raw Reviews on YouTube. You can also find my my publishing wing, which we discussed earlier. You can find Bonfire Press on Facebook. You can also find my great book, Belial, at Belial Comic on Facebook. And last and certainly not least, you can find my audio drama, Essence House, at essencehousestory.com.
Okay. And Brian.
Hi there. I'm Brian K. Morris, Rising Tide Publications. We do books. We do comic books. Here's one I've written for someone else that just came out recently. And we also work for other people. We can be found on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel, Camouflage 61821, but we're going to get that changed soon. We also have a Rising Tide Publications page on Facebook where we have new material twice daily minimum. We talk about creativity. We put up all kinds of funny memes and just generally talk about the business of creativity. Plus, 6 days a week, we have a show called Never Mind the Furthermore on YouTube and Rising Tide Publications and my personal profile page and the Oncon Network. We generally talk about whatever you want to talk about. Plus, we have one on Tuesday night called Clever's Title Pending. It's an interview show. This coming week, we are going to be talking about imposter syndrome, and I'm currently putting together the guest list for now. And this coming Thursday, I'm also going to get a slot on the Oncon Network. We're going to be doing one-on-ones with various creative types, and this coming Tuesday is the one, the only, Ted Davies. And I can also be found on Amazon and Smashwords, as well as risingtide.pub. Over to you.
How you doing? I'm Ted Davies. You can find me on teddaviesartistry.com, as well as all the other social media networks. Also, a YouTube channel, Ted Davies Artistry. Check out my book, Albino Zulu, and my new science fiction thriller, Retrieve, which you can find at teddaviesartistry.com. Look forward to seeing you guys online. Come enjoy some artwork with me.
All right, guys, and I'm Meredith Loughran. I am the Comic Newb. I am on this journey, and I hope that you follow it with me. I don't have nearly the pitch that these guys do. That's something on my to-do list, is something to practice, and probably a future panel that we're going to do. Coming up with the future panel, speaking of which, next week is going to be how to find the right artist for your story or vice versa. I am actually looking for guests. The people here, you have first refusal, obviously. It's at a new time. It is to go with the Comic Book Advocating Network. It is Friday, May 29th at 4 p.m. So that is going to be the new time for the Comic Newb. And the following week, because I'm trying to get organized, it is going to be critical elements for a good comic book. And that could probably be solo, but it's so much more fun with friends. And if you are interested in that, sitting on that panel, please reach out to me. I can be reached through Facebook or Twitter. And you can also reach me at meredith@geekinsider.com. And on that note, guys, let me just pull everybody back in here. I wanted to thank you so much for being part of my panel. I really appreciate it. You guys are a wealth of knowledge, and just being open and honest with the conversations and how to be better comic book creators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay, you guys hold